Those of you who've watched a few of my videos now might have noticed this marvel of astronautic engineering on my bookshelf. No, not the Lego Saturn V. I'm talking about this. This, my friends, is the Russian space pen. You see, the story goes like this. In the 1960s, during the USA versus Soviet Union space race, astronauts needed a way of taking notes in orbit on the way to the moon. Now, the story says that the Americans, they did what Americans do. They paid a private company hundreds of thousands of dollars to create a pen that could write in zero gravity, a pen that could write in a total vacuum, a pen that could even write underwater, which is pointless because space is famously dry. Now, the Soviet Union, they did what they do. They gave the cosmonauts a pencil. It is a great story. It showcases Soviet pragmatism against American government-backed capitalist wastefulness. It's just a real shame that it's bollocks. It turns out taking this humble pencil into space is a surprisingly good way of killing your astronauts. It's made of wood, which is flammable, and it's got a graphite tip, which sheds bits of detritus that can interfere with electronics, starting sparks that'll start fires that'll burn the wood that'll kill your astronauts. Now, that's two things you definitely don't want to do on a spaceship. Now, I'm not telling you all of this just because I'm a space nerd. I'm telling you this because it shows that you really, really, really need to just keep your message front and centre. Back in the 60s, when they were making things like that, NASA had an amazing message. They were pushing science and technology, American science and technology. It was a big ideological space race. They were pushing it to the limits. They were going to put a man on the moon. That was the 60s. Over time, NASA just gave up on that message, and they weren't talking about pushing the limits of human knowledge. They were talking about how spaceflight was safe, it was routine. The space shuttle was basically pitched as this giant flying transit van. They'd lost that message, and what happened? There's a vacuum. See, space pun. There was a vacuum, and the public replaced the story of pushing the limits of knowledge with a story about government waste, and that's how you end up with the story of the Russian space pen. Now, when we say message first, always, we don't mean, always start your marketing projects with a strong message. We do mean that. We don't just mean that. We mean you've got to keep putting your message first. Always. In everything you do. Because if you don't, people are going to start to create their own messages about you in the space that you leave behind. And that will be just as dangerous for you as taking a pencil into space would be for a cosmonaut. Didn't mean that to hit the rest on the back of my chair. That could have been cooler.